Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, My Noahide Family. I'm Chrissy Seaton and this is a part 4 of the wrap-up of our Noahide conference in Melbourne 2023. It was just a wonderful time. Each day you couldn't imagine it could be surpassed, but there was always something else so exciting and unexpected that came through to each and every one of us in one way or another. So day 2 and 3 were loaded with information, and day 2 the theme of it was the personal service of the Noahide, which included prayer, study, and life cycle events. And so we looked at that, and it was very enlightening, caused us to have some food for thought about certain things. And it also included the scope of Noahide observance, such as prayer, Torah study, and the mitzvahs that we can do. And that session was led by Rabbi Dr. Shimon Cowan, and a riveting experience. It made us all stop and think about things and how we did things and why we did it, and is it correct? Should we review it, etc. And then we moved on to another session which was called Questions of Noahide, Life Cycle and Community. Now, that was really a group discussion and preparation of questions for a Zoom seminar which we had, and these were with our experts that are in Israel. So in other words, these were rabbis and individuals who are considered high up on the scale of knowing what they're talking about and talking the truth. So each one of those presenters qualified certain things and re-explained certain things and brought things to our attention, and it was truly enlightening. It was full of growth and understanding, and we all picked up on something from that. Even if we knew it, sometimes when it's presented by a different person or in a different way, you pick up on something else and you think, oh, I need to rethink that. So although it's the same message and foundation, it's just a different speaker and you at a different time in your life or stage in your life listening to it, and suddenly it's like you're listening to it with fresh ears, and that's astounding, actually, quite astounding. Then we moved on in the evening to a wonderful occasion, and that was when Noahides were asked to step forward and take the Noahide declaration. Now, some of us had done, I myself had done mine when I was in Israel, but there were people there that had never had an opportunity, that Noahides that had never had an opportunity to make a declaration. And so that was made available in the presence of a rabbinical court in Melbourne. And it was a very moving experience for each of the individual participants, but also for those of us who were observing it. And it was sort of, really just, one of those things that's hard to describe, but it was very special to be witness to that and watch them make the declaration and sign their name, etc. And even the comments afterwards were just so nice to hear. So it was good. It was an honour to be present when those people made their declarations. There were 5 women and 6 men. And of course we took lots of photos, as you can imagine. So that rounded up day 2. Then we went on to day 3, and just when you think you've heard as much as and the best that you can, it's always as though they're saving the best to last. You never know what surprises are around the corner, do you? And so day 3 was one of those. It was full of good stuff, really. And one of the presentations was about the moment of silence in schools. Now, this, I think, was high on everyone's list of, one of the best presentations. And it was via Zoom, but we could interact with the speakers. And it was something we in Australia really need to seriously consider lobbying our local politicians and representatives about. And it's that moment of silence before commencing the school day. And it seems by the reports we get from a couple of places in America that are doing this, very positive results. Now, that's not to be sniffed at. And this is not about prayer. It is not about fanaticism. It's not about there's no hidden agenda in this minute's silence before class begins. It is simply asking the child to just stand quietly or sit. I'm not sure whether they stand or sit, but just to quiet the mind and think about anything they want to think about. They're not given any recipe for what to think. They're not, suggestions aren't made. It is really the choice of the child. And from what these presenters said, there's been some remarkable outcomes, positive outcomes from this experiment. But there has, I think, been legislation in, might be Texas. I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong. I probably need to check that. But I'm pretty certain that's where it is. So there's been remarkably positive outcome from where this has been practiced in some schools. So we can't dismiss that. I think this is something that children, they're coming in out of the playground, they're all, stirred up. And it's just, what do we all do? It's common sense. They say, take a deep breath before you make a speech, or before you say that, take a deep breath. You're all sort of just pause the moment a bit, put the button on pause before you retaliate. So it's really just an extension of that. Let's just stand quietly or sit quietly and just be quiet. So I think we should be very interested in finding out how these processes develop, where they are being practiced. The next session we had was called The Dangers Faced by Children, and this was presented by Mrs. Miriam Cowan, and it was basically the fundamentals around the erosion of parental rights and the concerns we all have and share regarding the dilemmas of what children are exposed to and the accompanying plethora of misinformation. And we all know what we're talking about. It seeps into the classroom, it seeps into the playground, it seeps into the sports arenas, it faces us in every walk of life. And in actual fact, it's almost an assault on us as parents and grandparents, assault on our integrity and responsibility and care for our children. And it's replacing us and the traditions of our family and our faith with what a social structure thinks it should be. And there are people that profess these sort of things that have hidden agendas. and it's hidden agendas that even some parents aren't aware of, and certainly the children aren't. And I think that this is something we should all take very seriously. What is being taught in our schools by our children? We are voters, ratepayers, etc. You have a right as a citizen to know just exactly what is being taught in your school. You know, what social standards and social studies are talked about at school. Do they meet with community and family standards? Are they of a righteous platform? Is it teaching our children to be righteous and kind individuals? Is that the platform of the school they're attending? How many hours are spent on encouraging a child with their studies and being a righteous, kind individual, as opposed to how many hours are spent on telling a child they can choose to be whatever they want to be? There's no constraints on them. So we need to think about this seriously. And I also think it's something that we should be talking to our local politicians and members about, just saying, where is your local school at? Where your district, represent the area you represent, Mr. or Miss so-and-so. What is your local school next to your home? Have you been there and observed what goes on? Have you sat in on a class? I bet they haven't. Okay, so this was a very, very powerful and thought-provoking presentation that led me to think of things, and I know it led other people to think of things as well. So it wasn't just how Mrs. Cowan presented it and what she presented, but it stimulated us as responsible individuals to think even beyond that. Okay, what is happening in the classroom? How many of us have ever sat in on a class? Have you ever been invited as a parent or grandparent to sit in on one of your, your child or your grandchild's class? Has that ever been invited? Anyone ever heard of that? Let me know if you have. Then we went on to another presentation, and this was about, and wait for it because this is a real clincher, teaching universal ethics in schools. Yes, eye-opener, isn't it? Now, in the United States, this has been put on the curriculum as an experiment. I'll use that word, experiment. And the presenters of that program we were privy to was John Havenar and Dr. Stephen Price. And they pioneered this, and I found this quite riveting, this presentation, because it was sort of, not just was it informative and motivating as a presentation, but it again caused us, the participants, of the viewer, the listener, to add questions to our agenda and say, what if? Well, why can't we have an experiment here like that? Why can't we do that? We don't know until we ask or try. So do we need to say to our school boards, private or public, is there anywhere in the curriculum where you discuss what it is to be a righteous and good individual in community? What, etiquette, practice, standards? Are there any guidelines given for how we should conduct ourselves as a responsible teenager or young adult or starting work? I hear back from employers that might take in apprentices and that they have some, and these are young adults coming to them to work as a junior or an apprenticeship, that lack basic, decent social skills. Now, when someone starts to tell you that, you can't dismiss that, can you? Some of them lack social skills that are acceptable. Things like please, thank you, excuse me. Just common niceties. I'm not going to go any further. I think that's enough, isn't it, to make us think. So, this experiment apparently in Texas had some very resounding praises, and there was like the premise they're coming from is that this could continue. This should, there was no bad outcome. It was an improvement for the school, the classroom, and it certainly didn't harm anyone, learning just to be a kind and well-mannered person, a righteous individual. Then, if you didn't think that could be topped, well, then one of the final presentations was hosted by Leo Uono. Now, he was there physically with us. He was actually a conference delegate. We got to know him quite well, a wonderful young man with tremendous ability and is able to connect with people in an extremely easy way. He's got a sense of humour. He's a very personable person, and we warmed to him immediately, all of us. He just was fun to be around, has a great sense of humour, but most of all, he knows exactly what he's doing, where he's at, where the people are that he cares for. And he is the head of a large Noahide community or group of Noahides in Indonesia. Now, he is, on top of that, looking after those people. He is a member of an organisation in Indonesia called Rahim. That's Rahim, Rahim. And that really is an interfaith organisation in Indonesia. And they have, and so Indonesia is a not only does it have a mixed culture, etc., but it has mixed faiths, and it is respectful of each other's faiths. It's in their constitution that you respect the faith of others, that you respect that there is, a God. And so they meld together very well in mutual respect and understanding. And so without me confusing you in my words, I'm just going to read this brief paragraph that explains it better than I can. And it says, it's a special project in Indonesia. An interfaith organisation called Rahim has been formed in Indonesia to bridge Indonesian Muslim and Judaism and to create open and better relationships. Its immediate goal is to disseminate the truth about Judaism and unbiased information about the land of Israel. How good is that? Their vision is not only harmonious relationships between Judaism and Muslim inside Indonesia, but also diplomatic relations between Israel and Indonesia based on respect, equality, and mutual benefit. In doing this, organisation has taken a special focus on the Noahide laws as a shared value set. The Zoom session will engage with Muslim leaders, and it did. So we had guests, Muslim leaders, representatives spoke to us from the on the Zoom platform. Now, that was it just in a tidy nutshell, what I read. But we were flabbergasted at the congeniality and the mutual respect that these various faiths coming together, but acknowledging there was a common thread. And I thought, well, you know what? Indonesia respects the faith of others. And we, as Noahides, and considering that a very large Noahide community is active in Indonesia, then we need to rethink how we are in the Western world, that we have to be tolerant. Doesn't mean we have to bow and give way to, but we must understand that every human being has a right to their own faith. And if we recognise that in everyone, we'll all, feel better in ourselves, and also goodness will come from that. So that was a wonderful way to round up our conference and say, you know, let's not discuss the differences we have with the other people of other faith. Let's settle upon what we are in agreement with, what, you know, the righteous way to behave, being kind, being active in your community, helping when there's a disaster, you know, being kind to someone, giving charity or doing charitable works. Let's concentrate on what we can do good with, and what we can come together in mutual respect and achieve. And I thought that was a great way to close off the conference. So thank you very much for staying with me while I discussed this wrap-up on a 4-part section. I did one for women, I think it was yesterday. But I just felt I wanted, while it was still fresh in my mind, I wanted to impart what a benefit the conference was, and as such encourage you people to, no matter how small, to gather a few of yourselves together and say, hey, let's do it this weekend, wherever, let's pick a place. And you know, you can do it on a fairly good budget. It depends on how big you want it to be, or how refined you want it to be, or whether you're just going to sit on a rug in a park, all of you, half a dozen of you, and just enjoy the sunshine or something like that, and have a, you know, I would suggest you start with some sort of an agenda. You need to have a bit of a pattern, otherwise it'll go off in all directions and it'll end up amounting to not much. But please do it. Get together, even if it's only 3 or 4 of you. Get together. In the meantime, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel, and your kind comments are much appreciated. I try wherever possible to answer questions or abide by requests, and eventually I'll get to them all. In the meantime, you take care, and God bless.